The storm rolled in like a wounded beast across the horizon, swallowing the sunset with bruised clouds and a sharp crackle of lightning. Out on the dusty plains, a lone cowboy rode slow and steady, his hat pulled low, his coat worn, and his boots caked with years of wandering. To anyone who might have passed him, he looked like a drifter, another forgotten soul drifting with the wind, living from one town to the next, chasing nothing but survival. But no one knew that behind those quiet eyes and weathered hands was a man who once had the power to change the lives of thousands, a man who owned lands stretching farther than the eye could see, a man who had turned away from the world after love betrayed him years ago. He hadn't let anyone close since, and he carried that silence like a second skin. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of love finding us when we least expect it, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. It helps us keep telling these stories that remind us of hope, love, and humanity. She first saw him in the corner of a small town diner, his boots dusty, his shirt faded, and his hat resting on the table beside a steaming cup of coffee. To Emily, a young woman who had been struggling to keep her family ranch alive after her father's passing, he looked like nothing more than another cowboy just passing through, another man without roots. She didn't notice the quiet weight in his eyes, or the way he studied the world like someone who had lost everything worth holding. She only saw a stranger, someone who didn't belong in her world of endless debts, worn-out fences, and nights spent wondering how long before the bank took everything away. For weeks, he kept appearing in places she didn't expect, at the feed store, by the river, outside the old barn that creaked like it was on its last breath. He never said much, but he helped when he saw her struggling. He'd lift a bale of hay like it weighed nothing, fix a broken fence without being asked, or calm a spooked horse with the touch of his steady hand. Emily was wary at first. She had seen drifters before, men who moved through life with no intention of staying, men who left broken promises and empty bottles behind. She had no room in her life for another burden, no patience for someone who wouldn't understand the fight she was in to save the only piece of her father's memory she had left. But there was something about him, something quiet and unshakable, that made her pause. When she saw him riding out across the plains at dusk, silhouetted against the burning sky, she felt an ache in her chest she couldn't explain. It was as if he carried with him stories that had never been told, and scars that matched her own. The truth was, Jacob, though no one knew his name, was not the man he appeared to be. Years ago, he had inherited half the state in land and wealth after his family's empire grew from cattle, oil, and steel. But all the money, all the power, meant nothing when the woman he loved betrayed him with his closest friend. Broken and hollow, he abandoned the world he built and left it in the hands of managers, retreating into the life of a simple drifter. He told himself he would never love again, never trust again, and for years, he kept that promise. Until Emily's stubborn fire cracked something inside him. Emily, meanwhile, was drowning under the weight of unpaid bills. The ranch that had been in her family for generations was weeks away from foreclosure. Each morning she woke up with fire in her veins, determined to fight one more day, but each night she lay in bed with tears she refused to let anyone see. She had no one to lean on, no safety net, no second chances, at least, that's what she thought. When Jacob began quietly helping, she wanted to push him away, but her heart betrayed her. His presence steadied her, even though she didn't know who he truly was. One night, as a storm tore through the valley, the barn roof began to collapse under the weight of rain and wind. Emily ran out in the downpour, desperate to save the animals, but the beams began to snap. It was Jacob who pulled her back just in time, holding her against his chest as the barn gave way behind them. In that moment, drenched and shaking, she felt the warmth of his hand steadying her and the strength of his arms keeping her safe. She hated how much she needed that comfort, how much she wanted to trust a man she barely knew. Over the weeks, the walls she had built began to crumble. Jacob never asked for anything, never made promises, never claimed more than he gave. But he showed up, every day, with quiet strength. He taught her horses listened more to patience than force, that fences didn't break without reason, and that sometimes silence spoke louder than words. Without realizing it, Emily began to feel less alone. And Jacob, for the first time in years, began to feel something other than emptiness. But the day came when the bank agent arrived, papers in hand, to take her ranch away. Emily stood trembling on the porch, holding back tears as they told her she had 7 days to settle her debts or lose everything. She turned away, broken, but Jacob stayed still, his jaw tight, his hat shadowing eyes that carried secrets he had sworn never to reveal. That night, he sat alone under the stars, torn between the life he had chosen, solitude, silence, escape, and the life he could no longer ignore. Finally, the truth could not be hidden. When the bank arrived to seize the land, Jacob stood beside Emily and spoke words that stunned her: "This land stays." He revealed his true name, his true legacy, and the empire he had walked away from. To Emily, it felt like the earth had shifted beneath her. The man she thought was just a drifter was one of the most powerful landowners in the state. She felt anger at his silence, betrayal at his secrecy, but beneath it all, a glimmer of something else: hope. For Jacob, it wasn't about power or money. It was about finally choosing to care again, about finally giving his heart to something that mattered. He saved her ranch, not because of wealth, but because he couldn't bear to see her lose the last piece of her father's love. In that moment, Emily saw the truth. Jacob was a man scarred by betrayal but still capable of love so fierce it terrified him. And as the days turned into nights, and the weight of their battles began to ease, they found themselves building something together, not just fences and barns, but trust, laughter, and the possibility of love reborn. Years of loneliness gave way to something neither of them expected. A drifter found his home, and a woman who thought she had lost everything found the one thing she never thought possible again: a partner who would stand beside her through every storm. And in the quiet of the plains, where the wind carried stories across the horizon, two broken hearts discovered that second chances were not just possible, they were meant to be. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. It helps us continue creating stories that heal, inspire, and remind us of the power of love and second chances. Speech Balloon Special Request: before you go, comment below: do you believe in love finding us when we least expect it?